Sampling factors and their effects. This is something pulled from the authoritative literature. It's just a nice recap, I'd say, for everything we've seen. But let's run through it. Here we go. Well, first, what's our first factor? In the assessment of inherent risk, right? What's inherent risk? It's the risk inherent in a company, such as you're auditing a highly complex derivative trading firm. That if that is a complex thing that you're not too familiar with, there's a high level of inherent risk. If you're auditing a simple, small, by the books company that just does manufacturing in a very simple way, that would be a low level of inherent risk. So our factor is assessing inherent risk. In which case would we have a smaller sample size? Well, if if we have a low assessed level of inherent risk. Like when would we have a small sample size, right? If there's a low level of risk. We'll generally see that. It's going to be when you have a low level of risk, whatever the risk type is. You see for control risk as well, you're going to choose a smaller sample size when there's a low level of risk. And similarly, when would you have a large sample size? When there's a high level of risk. Making sure you're aware of that. And then what is our related factor for substantive sample planning? It's the allowable risk of incorrect acceptance. This is what we went over time and time again, right? This is going to be something that we want to make sure we're taking into account as we assess these different risk types. We got now we get another factor, assessment of risk for other substantive procedures related to the same assertion. This is just going to be, I would call it in my own more simple terms, we got assessment of inherent, control, and then detection risk. Similar type item here, right? If there's a low risk, these are not supposed to be too groundbreaking. It's just when there's a low level of risk, we're going to do smaller sample size. When there's a high level of risk, we're going to do a larger sample size. Bringing that over here. And then let's talk about this tolerable misstatement. We've discussed that concept of what's tolerable. Here, what's the factor? The measure of tolerable misstatement for a specific account. So the tolerable misstatement is how much we're allowing, how much error, how much problem we're allowing here. Well, we'll have a smaller sample size when we are tolerating more of a misstatement, and we're going to have a larger sample size, meaning we're going to do more work and more testing when there's a smaller level of tolerable misstatement, meaning there is going to be less room for error. And our factor here is tolerable misstatement. Don't worry too much about what's going on here. Again, this is me pulling directly from what is from the AICPA's authoritative literature. I'm just going through what I think is most important for you. Wrapping it up here, we've just got a little bit more. What is our factor? Well, what we have here, expected size and frequency of misstatements. When are we going to have a smaller sample size? Well, if there are smaller misstatements or lower frequency of them, and we'll have a larger sample size if there's larger misstatements of higher frequency. Over here, we've got this related factor. I'm not going to worry about it too much. Here, the number of items in the population. Well, we saw this, and this is a multiple choice question you likely see. There is virtually no effect on sample size unless the population is very small, whether you memorize that as a fun fact or you're just quite familiar with it. There you go. Saw that before. And lastly here, the choice between statistical and non-statistical sampling. Ordinarily, sample sizes are comparable. So this isn't going to determine your sample size. This is going to determine if you try to quantify it or use qualitative characteristics. So these are kind of, obviously they don't break it out further here. These are kind of the eyeball ones. Just going through your different choices as an auditor when you're sampling. Well, I had a wonderful time with this sampling lesson. Revisit it as you need it and hear the wonderful sound of my voice. Keep going strong. You've all got this. And let's wrap it up with a good summary.
Hey there. Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material. We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.